My name is Marlo Chen, I'm 28, and I thought my sister's wedding would be the worst day of my life when she seated me behind a concrete pillar like I was some shameful family secret. But when a handsome stranger took my hand during the ceremony and whispered, "Your sister has no idea what's coming," I realized this wasn't just about bad wedding seating, this was about 15 years of lies, stolen inheritance, and a family conspiracy that would destroy everything my sister thought she knew about her perfect life. Before we dive into this wild story of family revenge and shocking revelations, I'd love to know, where are you watching from? This tale gets absolutely insane, so make sure to hit that like button if you're ready for some serious family drama, and trust me, you'll want to subscribe because this story has more twists than a soap opera. Are you ready to find out how one wedding seating arrangement exposed the biggest family secret of our lives? Let's get into it. Growing up, I always believed in the myth of unconditional family love. Sophia, my older sister by 3 years, was supposed to be my protector, my confidant, my lifelong ally. Our parents, David and Margaret Chen, had built a successful chain of boutique hotels across California, and we were raised with the understanding that family came first, always. But looking back now, I can see how carefully constructed lies were woven into the very fabric of our childhood. Sophia was always the golden child, prettier, more outgoing, seemingly more talented at everything she touched. While I struggled with shyness and preferred books to parties, she effortlessly commanded attention wherever she went. Our parents doted on her, and I accepted my role as the quiet, supportive younger sister. I told myself that love wasn't a competition, that there was enough for both of us. The first crack in my perfect family facade appeared when I was 13 and Sophia was 16. I overheard a heated conversation between my parents late one night, something about protecting Sophia's future, and Marlo never needs to know. When I asked my mother about it the next morning, she brushed it off as business talk, but something in her eyes told me there was more to the story. Throughout high school, the disparities became more obvious. Sophia got a brand new BMW for her 16th birthday while I got a used Honda for mine. She attended an expensive private college while I was encouraged to stay local and save money. When I questioned these differences, I was told that Sophia had special needs for her future, whatever that meant. I internalized the message that I was somehow less deserving, less important to the family's grand plans. After college, I moved back home to help with the family business, genuinely believing we were building something together. I worked 60-hour weeks handling the marketing and customer relations, while Sophia focused on creative direction, which seemed to involve a lot of long lunches and spa days. I didn't mind, I loved the work, and I thought I was contributing to our shared legacy. The real betrayal began to unfold 3 years ago when our grandmother Chen passed away. Grandma Rose had always been my champion, the one person who seemed to see my worth clearly. She had built the foundation of our family's wealth through shrewd real estate investments, and I always assumed her inheritance would be split equally between Sophia and me, as she had often hinted. The day after the funeral, I discovered that Sophia had inherited everything: Grandma Rose's properties, her investment portfolio, even her personal jewelry collection that I had always been promised. When I confronted my parents, they claimed Grandma Rose had changed her will at the last minute, deciding that as the eldest, Sophia should carry on the family legacy. The explanation felt hollow, but I had no proof of anything different. That inheritance allowed Sophia to purchase her own boutique hotel in Napa Valley, establishing herself as a successful businesswoman in her own right. Meanwhile, I continued working for our parents' company, now feeling more like an employee than a family member. The dynamic had shifted irreversibly, and I found myself questioning everything I had believed about our family bonds. The engagement announcement came 6 months ago. Sophia was marrying James Morrison, heir to a tech fortune and one of California's most eligible bachelors. The wedding was being planned as the social event of the year, with a guest list that read like a who's who of San Francisco society. I was genuinely happy for her, or at least I tried to be. But as the wedding planning progressed, I began to notice how I was being systematically excluded from meaningful decisions. I wasn't asked to be a bridesmaid despite Sophia, including college friends she barely spoke to anymore. I wasn't consulted about any of the major choices, from the venue to the menu to the music. When I offered to help, I was given menial tasks like addressing invitations and organizing favor bags. The final insult came 2 weeks before the wedding when I received my formal invitation in the mail. Inside, along with the elegant script announcing the union of Sophia Chen and James Morrison, was a small card indicating my table assignment. Table 47, tucked behind a massive concrete pillar in the venue's far corner, with a collection of distant relatives and family friends I barely knew. The message was clear: I was being hidden away, treated like an embarrassment rather than the bride's only sister. I called Sophia immediately, assuming it was a mistake. Her response chilled me to the bone. "Marlo, the important business contacts need to be seated where they can network properly. You understand, right? It's just more practical this way." No apology, no acknowledgement of how hurtful it was, just cold calculation disguised as practicality. That night I made a decision that would change everything. I hired a private investigator. Detective Sarah Williams came highly recommended by a lawyer friend who specialized in family disputes. A former police detective turned private investigator, Sarah had made a career of uncovering family secrets and financial fraud. When I met her at a small cafe in downtown San Francisco, I felt ridiculous explaining my suspicions. What proof did I have beyond hurt feelings and strange childhood memories? But Sarah listened intently, taking notes as I described the inheritance situation, the business arrangements, and the growing sense that I was being deliberately marginalized from my own family. "Family financial manipulation is more common than you'd think," she told me. "And the patterns you're describing, the gradual exclusion, the unequal treatment, the convenient legal documents, these are classic signs of long-term deception." Sarah's first discovery came within a week. Using public records and financial databases, she found that my parents had been transferring assets to Sophia for over 5 years, long before Grandma Rose's death. Properties, investments, and business shares had been quietly moved into Sophia's name through a series of complex legal maneuvers designed to avoid tax implications and keep the transfers hidden from me. The inheritance from Grandma Rose was even more shocking. Sarah obtained a copy of the original will through courthouse records, and it told a completely different story than what my family had claimed. Grandma Rose had indeed left everything to be split equally between Sophia and me, with specific provisions, ensuring I would receive her jewelry collection and a particular property in Monterey that held sentimental value. But there was a second will, filed just 3 days before Grandma Rose's death, leaving everything to Sophia alone. The signature looked authentic, but Sarah's handwriting expert identified subtle inconsistencies that suggested forgery. More damning was the fact that the witnesses to this second will were my parents' lawyer and accountant, people with clear financial incentives to support my family's preferred outcome. As Sarah dug deeper, the scope of the deception became clear. My parents had been systematically moving assets out of my reach since I turned 18, apparently believing that Sophia was better suited to carry on the family legacy. Every business decision, every inheritance arrangement, every financial planning session had been designed to leave me with nothing while making it appear natural and legal. The most painful discovery was a series of emails between my parents and Sophia discussing my future. In cold, clinical language, they debated how to manage Marlo's expectations and ensure she wouldn't become a problem as the family wealth transferred to Sophia's control. They discussed my personality, my relationship prospects, and my career potential like I was a liability to be contained rather than a daughter to be loved. One email from my mother to Sophia particularly stung. "Marlo has always been the type to be satisfied with less. She doesn't have your ambition or your vision." It's actually kinder to keep her focused on smaller goals so she won't be disappointed when she realizes she's not cut out for real responsibility. But Sarah's most explosive discovery came when she investigated James Morrison, Sophia's fiancé. What she found would change everything I thought I knew about my sister's perfect life and her grand wedding plans. James Morrison wasn't just heir to a tech fortune, he was also under federal investigation for securities fraud and money laundering. His family's wealth was largely fictional, built on a house of cards that was about to collapse. The FBI had been building a case against him for over a year, and multiple sources suggested that arrests were imminent. More shocking was the evidence that Sophia knew about James's legal troubles. Sarah found records of meetings between Sophia and criminal defense attorneys, payments to private investigators hired to monitor the federal investigation, and financial transfers suggesting that Sophia was helping James hide assets offshore. The wedding wasn't just a social celebration, it was a desperate attempt to combine resources and create spousal privilege that would protect them both when the legal house of cards came tumbling down. My sister wasn't just betraying me, she was potentially committing federal crimes while planning the social event of the year. As I sat in my apartment reading through Sarah's comprehensive report, I felt a mixture of vindication and devastation. I had been right to trust my instincts about being systematically excluded and cheated, but the scope of my family's betrayal exceeded my worst fears. They hadn't just stolen my inheritance. They had been planning my marginalization for over a decade. But along with the pain came something else, a cold, calculating anger that I had never experienced before. My family had taught me that I was weak, that I was satisfied with less, that I didn't have the ambition or vision for real success. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The wedding was in 5 days, and I was no longer planning to simply endure it from behind a pillar. I was planning to use it as the stage for exposing every lie, every betrayal, and every crime my family had committed. Sarah had given me the ammunition. Now I just needed to decide how to use it. The next 3 days were a whirlwind of careful preparation and cold calculation. Sarah had connected me with FBI agent Rebecca Torres, who had been leading the investigation into James Morrison's financial crimes. When I showed Agent Torres the evidence of Sophia's involvement in hiding assets, her eyes lit up with the kind of professional satisfaction that comes from finding the missing piece of a complex puzzle. "We've been trying to trace Morrison's money trail for months," Agent Torres explained during our clandestine meeting at a government building in downtown San Francisco. "Your sister's involvement explains several transfers we couldn't account for. But we need more evidence to make charges stick, especially if they're planning to claim spousal privilege after the wedding." That's when I proposed something that surprised even myself. I would wear a wire to the wedding reception. The plan was risky and potentially dangerous, but it offered the best chance to get Sophia and James on record discussing their illegal activities. Agent Torres was initially reluctant to involve a civilian, but the evidence I had provided was too valuable to ignore. "You understand the risks, don't you?" she asked. "If they discover you're recording them, we can't guarantee your safety. And once we make arrests, your family relationships will be permanently destroyed." I laughed bitterly at that last comment. "Agent Torres, my family relationships were destroyed years ago. I just didn't know it yet." The technical team fitted me with a nearly invisible recording device, hidden in what appeared to be an elegant necklace, Grandma Rose's pearls, which I had retrieved from Sophia's jewelry collection during a visit to her house earlier that week. The irony wasn't lost on me. I would be using my stolen inheritance to expose the thieves. Meanwhile, I had other preparations to make. Sarah had helped me contact several journalists who specialized in financial crime and society scandals. While I couldn't guarantee them exclusive access to the FBI investigation, I could promise them front row seats to the most spectacular wedding disaster in San Francisco history. I also reached out to several of Sophia's business partners and social contacts, carefully planting seeds of doubt about her financial stability and business ethics. I didn't make direct accusations that would come later, but I asked innocent questions about her recent investments and James's family business that got people thinking and talking. The most emotionally difficult part of my preparation was deciding how to handle my parents. The evidence clearly showed they were complicit in the inheritance fraud and had been actively working to marginalize me for years. But they were still my parents, and despite everything, I felt a complex mixture of love and rage toward them. I decided they would face consequences along with Sophia and James, but I would give them one opportunity to come clean before the wedding. I called my mother and asked her to meet me for lunch, claiming I wanted to discuss a family matter privately. We met at our old favorite restaurant, a small Italian place where she had taken me for special occasions throughout my childhood. As we sat across from each other, I studied her face, looking for any sign of guilt or remorse. What I saw instead was the careful, controlled expression of someone hiding secrets. "Mom," I began carefully, "I've been thinking a lot about Grandma Rose's will and some of the business decisions that have been made recently. I was wondering if there's anything you think I should know about the family finances." Her response was immediate and well-rehearsed. "Marlo, honey, I know it's hard to accept that Grandma Rose decided to leave everything to Sophia, but that was her choice. Your father and I have always tried to treat you girls equally, but sometimes life isn't fair." The ease with which she lied to my face was breathtaking. This woman who had raised me, who had comforted me through heartbreaks and celebrated my achievements, could look directly into my eyes and perpetuate a fraud that had stolen my inheritance and my future. "What if I told you I had evidence that Grandma Rose's will was forged?" I asked quietly. For just a moment, her mask slipped. I saw fear flash across her face before the controlled expression returned. "That's a very serious accusation, Marlo. I hope you're not considering doing something you might regret." The implicit threat was clear, and it crystallized my resolve. My own mother was threatening me to protect a fraud. Any lingering guilt I had about destroying my family evaporated in that moment. "Don't worry, Mom," I said, standing to leave. "I would never do anything I might regret." The morning of the wedding, I woke up with a sense of calm determination I had never experienced before. I had spent my entire life being the good daughter, the supportive sister, the family member who accepted less and caused no trouble. Today, that version of myself would die, and something much stronger would be born. I chose my outfit carefully. An elegant black dress that was appropriate for a wedding but would also serve as a symbolic funeral outfit for my old family relationships. The pearl necklace containing the recording device rested perfectly against my throat, and I practiced natural movements that would ensure clear audio quality. As I prepared to leave for the venue, my phone rang. It was Sarah calling with last-minute intelligence that would make the day even more explosive than I had planned. "Marlo, you need to know something," she said urgently. "I just got word from my contacts at the courthouse. The FBI is planning to arrest James at the wedding reception. They've been coordinating with local law enforcement, and they want to make the arrest when all the co-conspirators are in one place." This changed everything. I wouldn't just be exposing my family's crimes. I would be doing it moments before federal agents arrested the groom for financial fraud. The wedding reception was about to become the most spectacular public humiliation in San Francisco social history. "Are you ready for this?" Sarah asked. I looked at myself in the mirror one final time, seeing not the marginalized younger sister who had accepted scraps from her family's table, but a woman who was about to serve justice on a silver platter. I've never been more ready for anything in my life. The ceremony venue was breathtaking, a historic mansion overlooking San Francisco Bay, with gardens that seemed to tumble directly into the water. Sophia had spared no expense, and the result was a fairy tale setting that would have been perfect if it wasn't built on a foundation of lies and stolen money. I arrived early, wanting to observe the pre-ceremony dynamics and position myself strategically for what was to come. The guest list was exactly what I had expected: tech executives, hotel industry, moguls, society, families, and political figures who could help advance Sophia and James's business interests. These weren't friends celebrating love. They were networking contacts attending a business transaction disguised as a wedding. The seating arrangement was even more insulting in person than it had been on paper. Table 47 was indeed behind a massive concrete pillar positioned so poorly that I could barely see the head table where my family would be sitting. The message was unmistakable: I was an embarrassment to be hidden, not a sister to be honored. But what my family didn't know was that I had already activated my recording device and had positioned myself perfectly to move through the reception unnoticed. From behind my pillar, I could access multiple conversation areas without drawing attention to myself. The ceremony itself was a masterpiece of elaborate theater. Sophia looked stunning in a custom Vera Wang gown that probably cost more than most people's annual salary. James appeared confident and happy, playing the role of devoted groom with practiced ease. My parents sat in the front row, beaming with pride at their golden child's perfect marriage. As the officiant began the traditional vows, I felt a hand slip into mine. I turned, startled to see a distinguished man in his 50s sitting beside me, someone I didn't recognize but who clearly knew exactly who I was. "Your sister has no idea what's coming," he whispered so quietly that only I could hear. My heart stopped. Had my plans been discovered? Was this man going to expose me before I could expose them? But then he leaned closer and whispered, "I'm Detective Martinez, FBI, Financial Crimes Unit. Agent Torres asked me to keep an eye on you during the ceremony. We're coordinating with your timeline and everything is proceeding as planned." Relief flooded through me. I wasn't alone in this. I had the full backing of federal law enforcement. The weight of his hand in mine felt like solidarity and strength, and for the first time in months I felt like someone was truly on my side. As Sophia and James exchanged rings and promised to love each other forever, I wondered if they understood that they were also promising to share each other's legal troubles. In a few hours, those rings would become evidence in a federal investigation. The transition from ceremony to cocktail hour gave me my first opportunity to test my recording equipment. I approached several of James's business associates, asking innocent questions about their ventures and investments. The conversations were revealing, confirming much of what the FBI already suspected about the scope of the financial fraud. During dinner, I remained at my isolated table, but my position behind the pillar actually became an advantage. People forgot I was there, allowing me to overhear conversations that they never would have had in front of someone they considered important. I heard James's father discussing offshore accounts with another businessman. I recorded two of Sophia's friends talking about questionable investments they had been encouraged to avoid. Most importantly, I captured a conversation between my parents and the family lawyer about managing the inheritance situation and ensuring that everything stays buried. But the real breakthrough came during the speeches. As various family members and friends toasted the happy couple, I watched Sophia's face carefully. She appeared nervous, constantly checking her phone and scanning the crowd as if looking for threats. James seemed even more agitated, drinking heavily and whispering urgently with his groomsmen. That's when I realized they knew something was wrong. Whether they had been tipped off about the FBI investigation or had simply noticed unusual activity around their finances, they were aware that their perfect wedding day was built on shifting sand. My parents' speech was particularly painful to watch. My father stood at the podium, eloquently describing Sophia as the daughter who embodies everything we hope to build as a family: integrity, ambition, and loyalty. My mother added that Sophia had always understood the importance of family legacy and protecting what we've built together. The lies flowed so smoothly, wrapped in such genuine-sounding emotion, that I almost doubted my own evidence. These were master manipulators who had spent decades perfecting the art of deception, and they had clearly convinced themselves that their version of events was justified. But then came the moment I had been waiting for. As the evening progressed and alcohol loosened tongues, Sophia and James retreated to a quiet corner of the reception hall to have what they clearly thought was a private conversation. My position behind the pillar gave me perfect access to their discussion, and my recording device captured every word. "The investigator called again today," Sophia said urgently. "She's asking questions about the Montenegro accounts." "I thought we had contained that," James replied, his voice tight with stress. "Did you move the assets like we discussed?" "Most of them, but there are still some transactions that could be problematic if anyone looks too closely. And there's another problem. Marlowe has been asking questions about Grandma Rose's will." James's response was immediate and chilling. "How much does she know? I don't think she has proof of anything, but she's definitely suspicious. My parents think we should consider legal action to prevent her from making accusations, or we could offer her something to keep quiet. Everyone has a price." The casual way they discussed bribing or intimidating me into silence was the final confirmation I needed that these people were not just thieves, they were dangerous. They viewed me not as family to be reconciled with, but as a threat to be neutralized. As their conversation continued, they revealed details about the forged will, the hidden assets, and the offshore accounts that even the FBI didn't fully understand yet. My recording device was capturing evidence that would make the prosecution's case airtight. But then Sophia said something that made my blood run cold. "If Marlowe becomes a real problem, we might need to consider more permanent solutions. She's always been unstable, depression, financial problems. It wouldn't be hard to make it look like she couldn't handle the family situation anymore." The implication was unmistakable. My own sister was discussing my potential murder as a business problem to be solved. That's when I knew that my revenge wouldn't just be about justice or reclaiming my inheritance, it would be about survival. The moment of truth arrived during the cutting of the wedding cake. As guests gathered around the elaborate five-tier confection, I made my move. I had been waiting for maximum audience exposure, and this was it. Every important person at the wedding was focused on the happy couple, ready to witness their symbolic first act as husband and wife. I approached the head table slowly, my heart hammering but my resolve absolute. Detective Martinez had repositioned himself near the exits, and I could see other plainclothes agents strategically placed throughout the crowd. Agent Torres was watching from the balcony, ready to coordinate arrests the moment I gave the signal. "Sophia," I called out, clearly, my voice carrying across the suddenly quiet reception hall. "Before you cut that beautiful cake with your new husband, I have a wedding gift for you." The crowd turned to look at me with mild interest, probably expecting a late-arriving present or a sentimental speech from the bride's sister. Sophia's face went pale when she saw me approaching, but she maintained her smile for the cameras. "Marlowe, honey, this isn't really the time," she began, but I cut her off. "Oh, but it's the perfect time," I said, pulling out a manila envelope. "See, I've discovered something amazing about our family history, and I thought everyone should hear it." My parents had risen from their seats, my father moving toward me with a warning expression. But Detective Martinez smoothly intercepted him, appearing to engage him in casual conversation while actually preventing him from interfering. "This is my grandmother's real will," I announced, holding up the document. "The one where she left half of everything to me, including her jewelry collection and the property in Monterey. It's quite different from the version that was filed after her death." A murmur went through the crowd. People were beginning to sense that this wasn't a normal wedding interruption. Sophia's voice was strained but still controlled. "Marlowe, you're embarrassing yourself. Grandma Rose changed her will before she died. You know this. Actually, forensic analysis shows that the signature on the later will was forged," I replied, my voice growing stronger. "Along with the witness signatures. It's actually quite sophisticated fraud, the kind that takes real planning and coordination." James stepped forward, his face flushed with alcohol and anger. You need to stop this right now. You're making serious accusations. I'm just getting started, I said, turning to address the crowd directly. Did you know that the groom is currently under federal investigation for securities fraud and money laundering, or that my sister has been helping him hide assets in offshore accounts? The reaction was immediate and explosive. Gasps rippled through the crowd, phones came out to record the drama, and several guests began backing away from the head table as if scandal might be contagious. Sophia's composure finally cracked. You're lying. You've always been jealous, always trying to tear down what I've built, what you've stolen, I corrected. From me, from your business partners, from investors who trusted you. I held up my phone, which had been recording our entire conversation. I have everything, Sophia. Every conversation about the forged will, every discussion about hidden assets, every plan to silence me permanently. That last phrase hit its target perfectly. Several people in the crowd looked shocked, and I could see phones being raised to capture every word. My mother finally found her voice. Marlo, you don't understand the complexities of family business. There are legal and financial considerations, like how you've been systematically transferring assets to Sophia for 5 years to avoid taxes and cut me out of my inheritance, I asked. Or like how you've been discussing legal action against me for asking inconvenient questions. The wedding had transformed into a public tribunal, and I was the prosecutor presenting evidence to a jury of San Francisco's elite. The beautiful reception hall had become a courtroom, and my family was on trial for their crimes. James made one last desperate attempt to regain control. Security. Remove this woman immediately. She's clearly having some kind of breakdown. Actually, came a new voice from the crowd. She's providing evidence in a federal investigation. Agent Torres stepped forward, badge visible, flanked by several other agents. The sight of federal law enforcement at a society wedding sent shockwaves through the assembled guests. James Morrison, you're under arrest for securities fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit financial crimes. Agent Torres announced, her voice carrying clearly across the silent reception hall. As handcuffs appeared and James was read his rights, the wedding guests stood frozen in stunned silence. Phones were recording everything, capturing the moment when fairy tale romance became criminal prosecution. But I wasn't finished yet. As agents moved to arrest James, I turned to my sister, who was standing in her designer wedding gown looking like her entire world was collapsing. You want to know the best part, I said, my voice carrying a satisfaction I had never felt before. The pearls I'm wearing tonight, they're grandma roses, the ones you stole from me along with everything else. But I retrieved them from your jewelry box last week when I visited your house. Sophia's hand flew to her throat where an identical-looking strand of pearls rested. Those are mine. Those are cubic zirconia replicas I had made, I said with a smile. The real ones are right here, and they've been recording every word you've said tonight about forged wills, hidden assets, and your plans to silence me permanently. The look of horror on her face was everything I had dreamed it would be. For the first time in our lives, I had outplayed the golden child, and she knew it. As additional agents moved to arrest Sophia and my parents for their roles in the inheritance fraud, I felt a hand on my shoulder. Detective Martinez was standing beside me, no longer playing the role of concerned stranger. That was incredibly brave, he said quietly. And incredibly effective. The recordings you got tonight will put all of them away for years. I looked around the reception hall, taking in the chaos I had created. Guests were fleeing the wedding cake, sat uncut and abandoned, and my family was being led away in handcuffs. The fairy tale setting had become the scene of their downfall. For a moment I felt a pang of sadness, for what we might have been, a real family bound by love instead of deception. But then I remembered Sophia's casual discussion of permanent solutions to the problem I represented, and my regret evaporated. Justice had been served, and it was even sweeter than I had imagined. 6 months later, I'm sitting in the garden of my new home in Monterey, the property that was rightfully mine according to Grandma Rose's original will. The legal proceedings moved faster than anyone expected, largely due to the comprehensive evidence I had provided and the recordings from the wedding reception. Sophia pleaded guilty to conspiracy, fraud, and money laundering charges. She received 8 years in federal prison, and every asset she had acquired through the inheritance fraud was returned to me. James got 12 years for the securities fraud scheme, and their marriage was annulled before he even went to trial. Apparently, love doesn't survive federal prosecution. My parents faced consequences too, but I made sure they weren't as severe. Despite everything they had done, they were still my parents, and I couldn't completely destroy them. They received probation and community service in exchange for full cooperation with the investigation and complete restitution of the stolen assets. Our relationship will never be the same, but at least they're not in prison. The media coverage was intense but ultimately vindicated everything I had done. Wedding Day Justice became a viral story with videos of the arrest footage getting millions of views across social platforms. Several investigative journalists dug deeper into the story, exposing an entire network of similar inheritance frauds and financial crimes. I used the recovered assets to start a nonprofit organization helping families investigate suspicious inheritance issues. It turns out there are many people like me, family members, who have been systematically cheated and marginalized, but don't have the resources to fight back. We've already helped dozens of families recover stolen inheritances and expose financial fraud. The boutique hotel chain that was built on stolen money has been restructured under new management with me as the primary owner. I've kept most of the staff and implemented profit-sharing programs that my parents never would have considered. The business is thriving under leadership that values integrity over profit maximization. Detective Martinez has become a close friend and occasionally helps with particularly complex cases for the nonprofit. Agent Torres was promoted and continues to work financial crimes cases, often using my case as an example of how civilian cooperation can make or break federal investigations. But perhaps the most satisfying outcome has been the personal transformation I've experienced. The shy, accommodating woman who accepted less because she believed she deserved less is gone forever. In her place is someone who knows her worth, fights for what's right, and refuses to be diminished by anyone, family included. I still miss the family I thought I had, the relationships I believed were built on love rather than calculation. But I don't miss the version of myself who enabled their deception by being too trusting, too accommodating, too willing to accept scraps from their table. The pearls I wore to expose their crimes now sit in a place of honor on my dresser, a daily reminder that justice delayed is not justice denied. Sometimes it's just justice getting ready to be absolutely devastating. Looking back, I realize that being seated behind that pillar at the wedding was the perfect metaphor for how my family had always treated me. They wanted me present, but invisible, included, but marginalized family, but lesser. What they didn't understand was that pillars are designed to support structures, and when you remove them, everything comes crashing down. The stranger who took my hand that day didn't just offer comfort, he offered solidarity in the pursuit of justice. Sometimes the family you need isn't the one you're born into, but the one you build through shared values and mutual respect. My story isn't just about revenge or family drama, it's about recognizing your worth and refusing to accept anything less than you deserve. It's about understanding that sometimes the people closest to you are the ones most capable of betraying you, and that's okay, because your value doesn't depend on their recognition. So tell me, have you ever been in a situation where family loyalty conflicted with doing what's right? How do you balance forgiveness with justice when the people who hurt you are supposed to love you unconditionally? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, because family karma stories like mine show us that sometimes the universe needs a little help delivering justice. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories about standing up for yourself and fighting back against family manipulation. And definitely subscribe because I share more real-life stories about justice, revenge, and the sweet satisfaction of karma finally catching up to people who think they're untouchable. Share this with anyone who's ever felt marginalized or undervalued by their family, because sometimes we all need a reminder that we deserve better than the scraps people are willing to throw us. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, family isn't about blood, it's about respect. Sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to enable someone's worst behavior even when they share your DNA. The truth always comes out eventually, and when it does, make sure you're on the right side of it. Justice might be slow, but when it finally arrives, it's absolutely worth the wait.